the latest poll, we're just looking at CBS News poll, Trump leading in Iowa and New Hampshire by 30 points over DeSantis and 37 points over DeSantis, who's in second position in both of those, according to the CBS poll. All right, so latest CBS out of Iowa, Trump 51, DeSantis is in 2 at 21. Latest out of New Hampshire, Trump 50, DeSantis 13. Nikki Haley's right behind him at 11. She's right behind DeSantis in Iowa too, according to this poll. So anyway, the lead is huge, okay? However, what's interesting here is they say in both states, most voters are still considering multiple candidates. In fact, just a fifth in Iowa and a quarter in New Hampshire are considering Trump and no one else. So the vast majority of the voters in Iowa and New Hampshire are considering somebody other than Trump, even if they like Trump. So that's interesting. There's some, gleam of hope for these GOPers tonight. And these voters, they say, are more likely to say they are supporting Trump with some reservations. In both states, only Trump voters, the people who will only vote for Donald Trump, are outnumbered by the 1/3 of the electorate who are not considering Trump at all. So there are more never Trumpers in each of these states than there are only Trumpers. And again, they are saying most voters in Iowa and New Hampshire are still considering someone other than Trump. So I see, Emily, what the point is tonight. They're looking at this same data saying, so you're saying there's a chance.
Well, and they're not entirely wrong because they know other people around them have reservations about Donald Trump. And I think it partially explains what you mentioned earlier about why the ratings were higher than some people, including myself, actually where they expected them to be in the first debate. Now, of course, this isn't the first debate, so it's not the spectacle, but there's so much interesting stuff happening with the dynamics back and forth. It's why I think all of us wish that Donald Trump were a part of it because it's healthy to see this contrast and to argue it out. But this all is exactly why he's not. To your point, Megyn, it's an unnecessary risk for him. And on the one hand, it's impossible for him to lose debates because he just, like Shane Gillis says, will like turn to Rand Paul and be like, "You're ugly." That's his debate, and you just can't lose at that game. But on the other hand, there's really no reason for him to strategically look like he's on their level. It just makes more sense for him to totally stay out of the fray, do his own events that he can control. The other interesting thing, who's watching these? Donors, and where the money goes is going to make a difference in that sort of second place lane. And they are really, they after that first debate, there was a lot of reporting that people who were DeSantis curious, Tim Scott curious, then turned and gave money to Nikki Haley or decided to stop giving money to Ron DeSantis. And so you're balancing on the one hand, wanting to appeal to those Trump voters with reservations, but on the other hand, needing to appeal to the donor class that is totally in tension with those Trump voters that just have reservations about him personally.
That's a good point. Megyn, go ahead, Matt.
I would take those polls that you cited with a little bit of a grain of salt because they remind me a lot of the polls that you see all the time, and you'll see in this cycle too, of like large numbers of Americans, sometimes a majority, say that they are willing to entertain the possibility of voting for a third party. I'm someone who's covered third party candidates for a quarter century, so I'm aware of this. Americans are third partyists, in the streets, but not in the sheets, I guess is the way they phrase it.
Interesting.
When it comes down to it, they will go back to a more predictable place. So I'm sure there's a lot of people who say, no, I'm definitely going to think about other candidates besides Trump. But then when push comes to shove, it's usually what happens to Trump is that anytime he's really in the news, he's in the crosshairs of the legal system or something else, Republicans will, at least in the presidential primary, will flock toward him, not away from him. Because part of his selling proposition from the very beginning was the way he makes the media mad. He makes the left mad. And that is a value proposition. So it's sort of this little cycle. Valuable. It is. And I mean, people react to politics emotionally in many senses. And so it just helps. We haven't yet seen the place. We did for a moment during the Access Hollywood tapes in the late 2016 and October 2016, I think it was. That was sort of a micro moment when the reason that everyone was getting mad at Trump was actually affecting his poll numbers. And we've memory hold it now, but I think 10 senators, Republican senators at that time withdrew their support for Trump. Like it was a big problem for a week and a half for Donald Trump, but then support ended up rallying for him. And since then, there haven't been many external factors that have dulled Republican willingness to vote for him, let's say, if not quite a super open fondness. So, it's going to be hard for there to be any extraneous factor, I think, that will kick people off. I think it's more internally to him. If he decides that he's really going to run and be in it to win it, does he have the energy to do it? He's got to spend a lot of energy fighting criminal activity right now and legal problems. So,
well, that's the thing. So, realistically, and just to throw a couple numbers at you before I get to my realistically ending, there was another poll just out, Morning Consult, shows Trump up. This is just a national poll. Shows Trump up 43 points over his next closest competitor, who is DeSantis, 58-15. 43 points. My God, 58-15. That is just, it's insurmountable unless something absolutely devastating happens to Trump. And so what I was going to say a moment ago was the thing about the theory that, I discussed with Mark Levin, right, that he actually could be in jail at the time of the election or shortly before the election. That all would happen post-Iowa, post-New Hampshire, post-Super Tuesday. So we are down a path at that point. Like, I don't even know if playing the long game is a realistic option for these Republicans who are going to be on the stage in Simi Valley tonight, Emily, because these decisions get made this winter into this early spring about who the Republicans are going to go for. The trials will not be done. I realize she wants a trial, Fani Willis, like March 4th and so on, but it realistically, best case scenario for these rabid prosecutors, maybe they get him in jail by June. Well, we won't have had a nominating contest by then, but we will have had votes in all of the major states. We will know who the nominee is going to be. So as a practical matter, I really don't know how it could work.
And I think that's a big question for Democrats right now, too. And I actually think that's why you see both Gavin Newsom and Ron DeSantis agreeing to debate each other on Fox News, because they both want to set themselves up in this lane. And I would be curious to be a fly on the wall at the RNC and the DNC as they're like sort of digging through what I imagine are like bylines and having their lawyers pour over what happens in the case of a serious problem, a health problem, a prison problem. By the way, it's possible there's something out there that prosecutors are working on, that the Justice Department is working on as it relates to Donald Trump, or that some attorney general is working on as it relates to Trump, that would result in more immediate action. It's hard to say. We don't know, but certainly we've seen different things crop up. So it's just genuinely difficult to say. And I'm sure both parties right now are actually trying to figure out what the avenue is should something happen come June of 2024. And again, I think that's why you see both Gavin Newsom and Ron DeSantis and the people who are now fighting to overtake Ron DeSantis. It is just this like cannibalism to see who can take Ron DeSantis down a peg, create themselves as the heir apparent, which I don't know if it's possible because they're all sort of running in similar lanes, except for Mike Pence. They're trying to do that because, for the exact reason you mentioned, nobody really understands what happens when you get a free-for-all because something happened to the leading candidate after the majority of primary votes are cast.
I want to tell you guys that we're actually taking a deep dive into all of this right now, and we're going to be doing a show in about a week. We're making sure we've got all our facts on exactly how each person could be replaced. How would it work if it's Trump or Biden? If it needs to happen, how could it happen? How late in the process could it happen? And what are each of these teams, DNC and RNC, actually doing to prepare for it? So I'm really looking forward to that. I asked my team to get this ready a couple of weeks ago, and we've been working hard on it. So we are going to take a deep dive into how, because for the first time that I can remember, it is a realistic possibility that they're going to need to replace one and possibly both of the guys who get nominated or who win the early nominating contests and who have emerged as the one to be nominated with the most primary and caucus votes. It's crazy, Matt Welch, it's crazy. This is a flash sale event for EnviroCleanse, the home air purifier so powerful, the U.S. Navy chose it to purify the air on their ships. The timing of this 25% off flash sale could not be better. It is officially cold and flu season, And of course, it's the 10,000th variety of COVID coming out soon. EnviroCleanse is proven to capture and destroy flu and COVID viruses in your home. Not to mention bacteria, toxins, mold, and allergens. We found mold at our beach house. Guess what they said? Get some air purifiers right now before you can get it taken care of on a more macro level. EnviroCleanse is a way you can fight back against the entire family getting sick. In fact, EnviroCleanse is the only home air purifier that promises you and your family better health. Don't miss this 25% off flash sale, 25% off. Order your EnviroCleanse home air purifier while supplies last. Visit ekpure.com and use the code Megyn. ekpure.com, code Megyn, ekpure.com, code Megyn. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.